Dmytro Kuleba, who is no stranger to Bloomberg TV, he's been on this program before. Last time he spoke to us, I believe, on Bloomberg was back in January, framed as a loyal lieutenant here to Volodymyr Zelensky. Is Ukraine in better hands without him?
Well, I think the stability of the Zelensky government, Zelensky himself and his cabinet members, has been a big plus in selling continued support for Ukraine, both to the United States and to Europe. So this is a surprising move to me. I would just comment that my Commission on National Defense Strategy visited Ukraine in April at the invitation of the Minister of Strategic Industry, who's one of these people who has just resigned. And he was very capable, and what we saw there was drone manufacturing, tank manufacturing, and some other manufacturing in Ukraine, a robust industrial base that we actually can't replicate in the United States. So I'm not sure what the next moves are. I don't know who this Turkish ambassador is. I hope Zelensky will explain himself, because I think international support does depend on viewing his government as stable.
Well, and of course, international support does come at a cost, especially to the point you were just making, Jane, as to there's only so much capacity, industrial capacity, when it comes to a lot of this actual defense equipment. Knowing that in the aftermath of the deadly strike Russia conducted yesterday that killed more than 50 Ukrainians, injured hundreds more, they've called again for more air defense, things like Patriot missile systems and the like. Is there actually enough of that to go around?
Well, there needs to be more in Ukraine. Let's understand, I think this was said earlier on your program, that a majority of the appropriations for Ukraine go to the U.S. industrial base, which is producing the equipment. So these are investments at home, and that's good for the U.S. economy. You were just talking about why the U.S. economy polls higher, but this is a contribution to the U.S. economy. But there needs to be more equipment, more lethal equipment, and faster. I think we were way too cautious in sending long-range fires and in permitting Ukraine to hit targets in Russia. Let's understand those targets are where the attacks to Ukraine are coming from. Why shouldn't Ukraine be able to defend itself? I'm on that side. Many of us are and have been for months and months and months. And I hope that we will now give more robust permission and do our best to help Ukraine win, which is the goal here. Win meaning find a way to push Russia back, prevent Russian aggression into Europe, which will come if Ukraine loses.
Well, Jane, we have to hear from you on what's happening right now in the Middle East, and specifically Israel, where Benjamin Netanyahu did speak today. We'll talk about that in a moment. Earlier on Bloomberg Surveillance, we heard from Ron Dermer, the strategic affairs manager of Israel, said this about the likelihood of a ceasefire deal following the deaths of the 6 hostages last weekend in Gaza.
In the wake of the horrific execution of 6 hostages, including an American, Hersh Goldberg, Poland, Israel is not going to make concessions in the wake of that. We are committed to a deal. We set people to sit with negotiators to try to get that deal done. And I hope we can do it. We're working with the U.S. administration to try to push that deal forward. Until we have an actual practical solution on the ground for the Philadelphia corridor, Israel forces cannot leave.
Jane, Benjamin Netanyahu adds today Israel must stay at the Egypt-Gaza border in a first phase of any ceasefire. He's talking about the Philadelphia corridor. Without that withdrawal, is a ceasefire impossible?
I think the Philadelphia corridor is a new condition to a deal that I think is a very good deal. Kamala Harris strongly supports it. The Biden administration strongly supports it. Most of the world strongly supports it. And I think it's an Israel security issue to agree to the deal. I do understand that there are some issues along the border, but I don't think they're going to be solved by adding new conditions. I think they're going to be solved by implementing the deal and getting buy-in from the neighborhood, from many countries in the world, and from many citizens of Israel into a situation where there won't be more killing of hostages, and the hostages will be returned. What happened the last few days was horrific. I do agree with Ron Dermer about that. Was it avoidable if we had an earlier deal? I would want to think that, and I feel just as bad as he does about Hersh Goldberg.
Well, Jane, as you raise Israeli citizens themselves, of course, thousands we have seen take to the streets in the aftermath of the death of Hirsch and the others this weekend. Is it the domestic pressure on Netanyahu growing that actually could make the most difference of all, not the leverage trying to be exercised by the U.S. or Egypt or Qatar?
Well, I think they both matter. I think there is 250,000 people in the streets in one protest and continuing over days is a big deal. Benny Gantz saying that the Philadelphia corridor condition is not necessary is a big deal. And I think the internal pressure will grow. It is not my place or the U.S. government's place to talk about any change in government, but it is our place to criticize things Israel is doing that harm Israel's security. And I think by not taking the deal as originally constructed and agreed to by Israel, it's a big mistake by the Israeli government.